Yo guys, Coach Theo here on Common Sense. Today, I'm excited to bring you a full presentation of Uncommon Sense Fitness and Philosophy. Body, mind, and soul. It's holistic, you guys. So, before we get into the full presentation, let's just talk a little bit about what the purpose of this video is. So, ever since I started doing what I do 5 years ago, after those panic attacks that I overcame, went from this skinny fat loser, hedonist, nihilist, hipster kind of guy that you always hear me talk about, to the opposite, basically, uncommon sense Theo that you see today. Ever since I started that, I knew that a big part of what I found absolutely was the importance of working on your physical health, training, eating a good diet and that. But I also knew that I had found something else, that's just a cornerstone. It's a big component and a good place to start. But I started working on myself in a holistic way, really. And I know I'm good at presenting my different ideas in different videos and that, but I find it a little difficult to just package the entire thing when people kind of like want to know what I'm about. Like people that just know me a little bit in my life, they think I'm like a trainer and bodybuilder. And absolutely, that's part of it, but it's not all at all. So with this video, I kind of want to, both for myself, just clarify everything. I'm someone that could overthink and spend way too much time on doing a presentation like this, but I figured like, screw the perfectionism, as always, by the way. You should always be thinking like that. Let's just jot down everything that I can think of that I consider part of this process and do a presentation of it. And then I can always do updated versions further down the line, right? But it's a good starting point. I can clarify for myself, like, maybe, because we're going to touch on everything a little bit, but I can clarify that, maybe I want to delve deeper into these things. And of course, I'll get responses, input, comments from you guys that will also clarify for me, like, maybe I should focus more on this. And of course, for you that already follows and that gets it, it's just a chance to see, because this is, of course, what the process I do myself, what I teach on the channel, and what I bring to my coaching clients. So for you that have been curious about the coaching, it's also a chance to kind of get like everything that I'm about. In one place we find this. So, but before we go on, one final thing is that I want to genuinely and humbly ask for you guys' support, because I'm already humbled and grateful that people have wanted to support me with, super chats when I've done the live chats. People have even here and there reached out to just send a little contribution on PayPal. I've had a Patreon, and by the way, I've forgotten about it because I said I was going to delete it, and I've just not thought about it. And I saw today that a few guys are still sticking around, so I appreciate that. But and also that I've been able to make a living off of this, bringing what worked so well to me. I want to put out as much as free for possible, but I always know that I can do more when I work directly with people, and that I've been able to do that. I'm very grateful to be in that spot. But as I've chosen to do this the way I do it, where it's something, a critique I have against like internet and social media, or like society as a whole these days, that everything is so puffed up. It's all surface. So many things that just look good to speak to you like that, but then it's really just full of shit. But you don't know if a training video is well produced, but the guy really doesn't have good ideas. If you aren't knowledgeable and experienced with training, you don't know, right? And I'm not saying that all highly produced content like that is just inherently bad. Of course not. But there is a lot of that going on. And also I have a bit of nostalgia, for the old days of the internet when everything was kind of rough around the edges, and, people just liked what they liked, kind of. So while I absolutely would consider upgrading hardware and stuff like that, I know I've gone on a path. I don't play into the algorithm and stuff like that. I don't push for growth just in those kinds of ways, because I don't want to abandon this this aspect of it all, right? So I know I've chosen a path of slow growth. So what happens for me with like clients, for instance, is I will get a good chunk at some points, just good influx. And this helps me make a living for a while. But then I'm just not that big that I can rely on a completely steady stream of clients like that. And of course, the content, just like from ads or something, doesn't generate barely anything. So I could really use you guys' help. This is all kind of vulnerable for me to say, to be honest. I can't now. Just added, I think, when this video is up, so that you can become a member of the channel as well. I'll put the PayPal in the description. I guess I'll start doing the Patreon thing again. Right now, I can't promise any like exclusive rewards for you who choose to support me like that. You're taking one for the team, basically. You're just helping me, be able to keep doing this, putting out content, and maybe even ramp up the speed. So you're just basically helping everyone that follows out by doing that. Of course, if someone would contribute big enough, I would always want to repay it somehow. At the very least, have a call or something. And further down the line, I really hope to be able to reward people that choose to support me in that way. But right now, I had to just focus, because even if I'm doing it, I want to not abandon doing it the way I do. But of course, there are things that I can come up with. I've just not quite found my way of speeding up growth. But even if I do it this way, quality over quantity kind of style, of course, there are things I could do, speed things up. And I'll say here lastly that, of course, financially, that's great, because I can always, then I can choose what I invest that in. It will help me on every level like that. But if you can't do that, you can the comments and likes, it always helps. Subscribing, of course. If you can share it, like not even just on your Facebook or something, but in forums, Reddit, whatever, this will all help me. And anything you can come up with, really. I'm open. People have reached out and helped me with random little things here and there. But yeah, guys, I'm really at a point where I really could use some help from you guys. And I don't want to be entitled. I feel weird about these things, with anything you can come up with. If you have any ideas for me, anything that you'd be willing to pay for that would help you, of course, it's going to be mutual. All good business has two winners, right? But yeah, guys, in any way that's possible for you, I could really use and appreciate your support. So, okay, without further ado, let's get into the actual presentation here. So, very first, I put holistic bodybuilding. And before we talk about this, because now I'm just going to scratch the surface on everything I see as part of the uncommon sense process, really, uncommon sense fitness. But this is such a central part of it that I will want to do a video sort of like this, where I actually dive into my entire training philosophy, more specifically exercises, programming, everything like this, right? Because it's so big that I can't do that in this video, and we're not going to deep dive into everything either way. But yeah, let me know if you'd be interested in that, because these videos, of course, take effort and a long time to do. So please let me know. No, but bodybuilding as a central tool for personal development. So it's not bodybuilding is not the end all be all, but it's a cornerstone of the process that we do here. It's actually person building. Body is an expression of the person. You're building. There's such thing as the body without the person that does the things that leads to that body. Just look at these pictures, right? Do you think that the looks is everything that separate those guys? No, I don't think so. But aesthetics as a side effect of becoming the strongest and best version of you. So it's not that we, as some people, I don't care about building muscle, because everyone cares about looking, or you should. It's like nothing wrong with that. And when it comes in the right way, I always say that, right? That all physically attractive traits are either an expression of good health or an imitation thereof. So when you do it the right way, no steroids, no surgery, and a proper training practice that isn't solely focused on building muscle, absolutely, the aesthetics correlate. Like a body that looks good because it is good. And yeah, the holy trinity of strength, hypertrophy, and flexibility. We don't focus just on building muscle. We will do some things for that purpose, because we don't shy away from the fact that we like looking good as well. Like training the biceps, for instance, that's not always all that functional. It's pretty much mostly for aesthetics, right? But as a whole in our programming, it's not just building muscle. We want a strong, capable body that's flexible, that feels good, because we're not only using machines. Machines can have their place, absolutely, but that's another example of how you could balloon up your muscles so they kind of look good, but you're stiff and you have pains and stuff. So yeah, we absolutely have bodybuilding, getting a nice looking body as a goal, but we want to be checking other boxes at the same time. And so we use the gym process as an analogy for life. And there's a reason that's, there are many metaphors from the gym that work well for life. Progressive overload. You start slow, you grad, but the thing about making a progression, whatever you take on, you can start at the low level, but you need to be progressing. You need to have consistency. You need to have intensity. You need to work hard. All this kind of stuff, right? Like, so that's why it's also a cornerstone, because so many of the things that we're going to do in the work on ourselves, we can kind of compare to the gym process. And so this is all we will be saying about it for now. But like I said, I can definitely do a long presentation of my actual training style too. So please let me know, guys, if that's something you would be interested in. I did ask for your support on that, but I will always want to put out as much information for free as well. Okay, nutrition/diet. So maybe, because I'm not the science guy, nutrition science guy or anything. I will take part, follow stuff. I will look at some scientific stuff and that, but it's not really, I'm not the guy to inform you about all the facts like that. But I use some uncommon sense here again, and just my experience, what's worked for me, but I probably could do nutrition presentation video too. It would be more difficult for me than the I'm much more interested in the training. You can always let me know too. But okay, so some rules here that I follow. I'll say that I don't think there's one way to do dieting, but this is kind of what I have found works really well for me and for individuals, similar goals as I have. So whole food, minimal processed food and junk, that should be obvious, right? But it's like no matter what diet you do, that's going to be so central. Even a vegan diet consisting of just good whole foods could be healthier than like a omnivore diet that's also filled with processed junk, right? So yeah, but the way I see it, animal products are the most nutritious and important parts of a diet, but not full on carnivore. I just don't believe that. It just doesn't make sense to me. I could get into this longer, but we're not going to do that now. The diet I have is vertical diet inspired. So vertical diet is a diet by Stan Efferding, and yeah, I recommend his content. Stan is a great teacher on many things too, but I think it's a good way to kind of understand how you can build your diet in a sense. So I don't follow it to a T, but I still at the back of my mind had a kind of structure in my head. So in his diet, red meat and white rice is where you're going to get the majority of your calories. And then you address micronutrient needs with certain vegetables and fruit, but of course eggs and dairy and stuff like that as well. So meat, eggs, dairy, starchy carbs, that's what I would say is the majority of the calories. Starchy carbs, the ones I like most are rice and potatoes. The rice is going to be a better bulking food, potatoes more for cutting or maintaining. But fruit, honey, some vegetables. Vegetables are overrated, by the way. Like some are absolutely good, but fruit is are better. Fruits are better than vegetables, in my experience. But the carrot I love, for instance, salt. Salt is very important. All the fasting people are gonna know this. So there's the next one, controversial, but especially to the fasting people. That's also often dabbled in the carnivore and keto. But carbs are good, and so is sugar. And I want to be clear that this is to the individual that's healthy, that's active, and has these kinds of bodybuilding goals, right? And so sugar, I want to be clear that, it's never made sense to me. I always use uncommon sense, right? That why would the human body that works so very well, that it can, when it works well, it really tells you everything you need to know if you just listen to the signals. And so why would sugar taste so good to us if it wasn't good? But the difference is, of course, that in the times we're living now, sugar in general is very available. It wasn't always like that. And then there are these processed foods, like just as many things, they capitalize on our senses and kind of exploit them. Like these highly processed foods, they're going to taste good to us, but they are not good, of course, because, if a little bit of sugar in a fruit is good for you and la 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 la, yeah, we weren't designed, these things, these processed foods that are filled of sugar and many other things, they didn't exist when we were created, right? So that it's not that I'm saying that, processed candy and shit is good. But carbs are very good for performance, but actually hormonal health as well. And sugar in the forms of fruit and honey, it's like super fuel for you. And so the typical macronutrient distribution I would go for is high carb. You want to have high carbs for as high carbs as possible for your output, in your training, basically. It's also going to help with muscle growth. They're not going to make up the muscle, but it's going to trigger anabolic processes in the body. High protein, of course, to build muscle, but not only that, it's a great way of staying lean because it's the most satiating macronutrient. You'll be full for longer if you always eat protein with your meals. It's also the macronutrient that takes the most energy to digest. So in reality, calories from protein are less because you burn more digesting them. And a moderate fat, because I'm absolutely not a fan of too low fat. We need it for some hormone synthesis, but high fat, obviously, when we do it like this, we don't want kind of have high everything, right? But for someone like myself that's already fit, quite active and all that, it pretty much ends up, my macronutrients distribution is pretty much a third of each macronutrient. And so, like the calories, not grams, because fat is 9 calories per gram and the others are 4 calories per gram. Then intermittent and prolonged fasting, I of course really like, as many of you will know, you do it too, follow the channel. We're not going to talk too much about it now because it has its own section further down the line here. And no seed oils. It's one of my few like dogmas that I have, that seed oils, these oils that haven't been around, some of them for not even 100 years, it's like the worst thing. So a pretty good rule, you probably have a decent diet if your one rule is I don't eat seed oils. The caveat is, of course, it's if you at one point, it's convenient to have a protein bar at some point in your life. That's a good solution, and it contains just a little bit of some seed oil. That's not going to be the end of the world, but for your staple foods in your diet, just as we want to avoid processed foods as much as possible, seed oils, definitely don't make it a staple. Very important. Just always watch the labels, guys. Supplements I put here because they can have their place. You can address certain micronutrient needs with supplements. Magnesium will be one that's often hard to get via diet, and you can deplete yourself from stress and that. And then, of course, there are some supplements that are like not essential, but could help you with health and performance, like creatine or something like that. But I put them below everything because really, before you have your fundamentals with the training, diet, and sleep that we're going to get into next, nailed down, supplements are going to do so very little for you, really. Then I put this here because I didn't know where else in the presentation to put it, but avoid artificial, fake, and toxic ingredients everywhere. Like diet, it's bigger than just what you put into your mouth. It's everything you take in, really. So find natural alternatives, do your research. You need almost none of these things. Like an example would be shampoo. I know that sounds crazy to some because you've been brought up with it. It's the norm, but we use all this crap, but you don't really need it. Like your body, it's designed to take care of you. Water is going to be enough many times. And it's not to say that you can never use some kind of soap or shampoo. This is just an example, right? But you find natural alternatives. Like me, for instance, the shampoo I use is I put an egg yolk like once per month in my hair. You'll be surprised how well it does the job that shampoo is supposed to do without any like toxic crap in there. So many of these things like deodorant and stuff, it's a bunch of crap in there. This is one of the armpit where you absorb things the most easily, and you block sweating. You want to be sweating, right? And if you're healthy, you're not going to be that smelly. You're not going to excrete a bunch of crap and not smell bad. It will be more of a raw, odor like that. But you can, again, find natural alternatives. I'm not an expert in all these things, but I'm saying if you go looking for natural alternatives, if you want to keep using these things, you'll find better stuff. Just avoid as much fake and toxic shit, artificial stuff as possible. But the caveat here is also that avoiding toxic a majority of the time, kind of like with the seed oils there, it means handling the inevitable toxic well, because in the modern environment here, it's just going to be impossible, like in the air even, so you're not going to be able to avoid everything. But if you make it a priority that I avoid it as much as possible, the human body isn't that fragile. It can clean out some crap. It's just don't fill it with crap, right? An example would be that receipts. You don't want to be touching receipts because you get microplastics in your bloodstream that can, mess with your hormones. But so if you a majority of the time don't take or touch receipts, but then you need it maybe for the books. If you have a company, for instance, like that will happen to me, then you don't have to worry about touching the receipt that all the time, but always make the rule, avoid these things as much as possible, and you'll be fine the times you have to get some toxic stuff in you. Is sleep a priority for recovery and well-being? I think everyone knows this, of course, but a lot of people are kind of still unconscious about it. You just know, oh, I'm just tired if I don't sleep well, but why are you? You haven't recovered properly. And it's like, yeah, it's one of the areas where people will compromise the most for some reason. But the thing is, if you make sleep a priority, you're gonna find that because a lot of I wanna stay up and watch this, la la la. You wanna do stuff, but if you just make it a priority to go on bed on time and sleep enough, you're gonna find time to do those things that you're doing in the evening otherwise, and your quality of life, not only your quantity of time there, but the quality, you'll be able to do so much more with your time. So go to bed no later than 10 p.m. is kind of the rule. A couple hours there before midnight are the most important ones. I've found if I fall asleep at 10 and would wake up at 4, for instance, I sleep 6 hours, I have recovered and feel better, have higher energy than if I fell asleep after midnight and slept for like 7 or 8 hours. And so even if I say that, don't go to bed later than 10. I think it's good to go to bed even earlier. I myself go to bed at 8 a lot of the time, right? And so start the day early, win the day early. Just that it's not something you have to do. You don't have to go to bed that early, but I see many good reasons for it. You can start your day ahead. Other people, and that just means that you're done earlier in the day, and the things that you'll be wanting to do later, it's kind of sometimes you just optimize your day in a sense, doing it like this, right? So we have a sleep down alarm instead of a wake up alarm. That's one bonus with going up so very early, like I do. Is that basically you never need a wake up alarm because you can always sleep until you're done, right? Because you don't always have the same need for sleep. Like at times when you're more like depressed and stuff, you're probably you're spending so much energy thinking you're gonna need a bit more. When you're highly motivated, up and running, might need a little bit less. If you go and sleep on time, you can always sleep until you're done, and you don't have to be woken up by artificial alarm clock like that, right? So morning sun, we're gonna get into sun a bit more later, but morning sun is one of the best things you can do to set your circadian clock. Tell your body the red light in the morning will send a signal to the body so it knows what time of the day it is. It will actually help you go to sleep at night. And so you want to be avoiding artificial light, like the blue light, especially at night, of course. Like it does, of course, you're going to have some blue light looking at screens and a phone in the day. It's not a big deal. But at night, it stops the melatonin production, make it a bit more difficult for you to sleep. So, if you can, there are, like all smartphones have, like this night shift mode. And then you have the blue light blockers, of course, the biohacking glasses. Dark and cold room, it's always going to help for it to be cooler and dark. There are supplements, like some honorable mentions. Like I have a little bit of a sleep stack that I take, not every night, but sometimes it's glycine, magnesium biglycinate, inositol, theanine. Those things can help you a little bit. But again, all your just habits and consistency with this, avoiding the artificial light and getting the morning sun and stuff, going to bed at around the same time, that's going to help more. But those things can help you fall asleep a bit sooner and, make you stay asleep like that. So God and faith, yes, this is a big part of the process, right? You can call it the universe, source, God, or whatever you want, but just acknowledging that there is a higher power, there are laws to this universe, right? There is something that created everything and exists within everything, like the final common denominator, right? And so this, of course, this I don't know how much I'll get into all of this now, because this is so vast, really, and it's more of a worldview thing than. Yeah, I mean, some of these things, I guess, you practice also. But so one thing I guess I'm giving you my view on the things now. But no past, no future, here and now. Like it's a good way to look at things. And here and now, like the theory of relativity, right? Like really, time is an illusion. Everything happens all at once, and it just has to be like that for for us to have the experience, right? But the past, the less attached you can be to the past, the better, because it's gone. Like sometimes you have to think back to, oh, where did I put my keys? Like practically like that. But the less you can dwell on things and realize that the past is never coming back again, the better. The future too, it's not here yet. So you can save yourself a lot of worry and pain, not worry, like worrying as little about the future as possible and focus on here and now. God is within, not without. All right. So God is not someone sitting up there looking at you like that. No, God is viewing everything through you. God is on the inside, right? And we are spiritual beings having a human experience. That kind of goes into that, right? Separation is an illusion. Okay, I don't know. I jotted down everything I could think about here. Like this is really could be its own video, but these are things. It's good to see, right? That. What's going on here really is that I split myself in two so I could meet you. The universe splits itself into all these seemingly separated parts to be able to get to know itself better. We're all just part of this big thing. We're all, if the universe is an ocean, we're all drops in it. So you see, we're separate but still the same thing in that sense, right? And so unity and duality, that goes into that, right? There is duality of like the masculine, feminine, the yin yang, the dark and the light. The more you can recognize this, you're going to see that there's an opposite of everything, right? And so purpose over pleasure, what is good over what feels good, right? Because the nihilistic path that I was on earlier, right, and there many are today, you prioritize what feels good, but you see that as something that is good. No, candy is good because it tastes good. No, sex is good because it feels good. But what is good is the important part, and that doesn't always feel good. What is good? Sometimes you have to do painful, difficult things, and it's the right thing, and it's what's going to lead to the best thing in the end. And sometimes what feels good comes at a price. Being drunk, for instance, that might feel good, but it breaks your body down. You get hungover immediately, and you just break yourself down, destroy yourself. So the golden rule, it's from Christianity, of course, but we treat others as we like to be treated. This is about morals, really, and because. And a lot. It's again a nihilistic thing. Like, nah, if they don't do it for me, I don't want to do it for them. But I promise you, you're gonna get the most rewarded if you stay true to what's right, not yeah, right. I promise you, we all have a conscience. You always know. You always know. God is looking through your eyes, right? Prioritizing love, truth, and what's right above all. Yeah, it goes into that, right? Like no matter what, because this is the straight and narrow path, guys. It's difficult. You're many times going to be tempted to play the game with everyone else, but always prioritize love, truth, and what's right above all. I promise you, you'll be. It doesn't seem like it always, but you'll be the most rewarded in the end. Force for good, helping others. It goes into this that the separation is just an illusion, right? Like when you hurt someone else, you actually hurt yourself. So if you do good for others, you're actually helping yourself. What you want in this life for yourself, you're gonna have to give to others. So you're not gonna be able to do it selfishly. It's not gonna work if you're like, oh, I'll do this nice thing, so I'll get this. But if you can just know that, yeah, doing good for the world is also gonna do good for me. That's the perfect balance you want to find, right? You're never perfect. You're never God. We have all these ideals that we want to strive for, but we are not. None of us on our own are God. So we are imperfect, and that goes into forgiveness. Just as you have to forgive others, you have to forgive yourself for not being perfect, but not letting you get away with it. Like you're going to be so, oh, yeah, I can do better here. Don't judge yourself. Just be better. Forgiveness, letting go. It's just that holding on to hate, resentment. They say about things like that, and it's very true. It's like drinking poison and hoping that the other person's gonna die, but it's you that do. So it's not about. I'm big on forgiving, especially your parents. Seeing what they did wrong, how that shaped you, but not holding on to resentment and anger. But seeing it, you have to, in order to change, then you want to let it go. And it's not about saying that that's, well, whoever you need to forgive, that what they did was okay. It's just recognizing that that's the best for you, to let it go, forgive. Hormesis, stoicism, stress resistance, and anti-fragility. So, yes, okay, many of, I am thinking of other slides, I know, but okay, these are things that I practice a lot. Cold exposure, sauna, exercise, obviously, fasting, meditation I put here. We're going to get into that more later on as well. But these are all different stressors. Hormesis is, of course, positive stress. A lot of people view stress as something negative, but it's just when it's too much or something you can't handle, like both, like right now, that it makes you unable to perform, or it's just something that's so much that you don't recover from it. But exposing yourself to the right amount of stress, like training, is a good example for someone that quite doesn't get how stress can be good. Physical exercise is a stress. You do break yourself down immediately from it, but when you hit the sweet spot, you build yourself up stronger. You build that muscle, right? So it's the same. And again, I'm not the science guy. I'm not the guy that's going to sit and list all the benefits of cold exposure and sauna like that. Because to me, it's just the experience too. The cold exposure, I know it's difficult. Intuitively, you don't feel like, oh, I'm in the mood for a cold plunge, right? But doing it, it strengthens you. It can also, yeah, I'm starting to talk about it too much. But one way I like to use cold exposure, for instance, is in the morning. Do cold showers. It's kind of, starting the day doing something that you kind of don't want to do, push yourself to do that. Now everything is easier, right? Because you did something you didn't want to do. Now, if this was your baseline, you go in, you experience this with a cold. Now this feels like you're higher than before, right? But you can also do something like cold exposure for longer amounts of time. I just don't like that in the morning, really. But yeah, sauna, like all these things. To be honest, we don't have to, I guess, go into them so in so much detail. But these are all good tools, basically, to increase your level of stress and anti-fragility. You just be able to tolerate and handle life more, even when you are stressed. You will not necessarily feel calmer, but it doesn't overwhelm you like that. Even when you feel highly stressed, you can stay in control more. All these things have helped me with this. States. So this is something I'm big on. The state, it's as like a state of being. Like it's recognizing that you aren't always in the same state, right? So we can't always expect to be able to do the same things. We want to up our C game, as I call it, like raise our lowest level, so that even when we are in a low state, when we are now looking at this frequency chart here, like experiencing those lower frequencies, that we've improved our capability so we can do more there. We always want to raise our lowest level, but if we think we're always going to be able to do exactly the same things, then we're going to be disappointed, because some things, I am that kind of person, and I'm kind of bipolar. I don't really necessarily mean the diagnosis, but I've just noticed in my life that no matter what, I seem to be a person that get to experience really high highs, where I just feel amazing in a way that I think some people don't get to experience in that way. And everything almost is like effortless to me, but I can also experience these very low lows when I'm like, then before, when I thought I was going to be able always to be the same, I get a lot of disappointment in myself when I can't quite do the same things, right? And so even if I think I'm someone that moves more extreme in the both directions, of course people are going to have better and worse states, right? So it's still something to recognize. But so let's see, high states versus low state, contraction versus expansion. Yeah, so in those lower frequency times, like which order when I talk about this? Yeah, long-term state versus short-term state. So I view it as sometimes you're gonna have to, if things are really going your way in life, you might just feel great in general. So even when some kind of something negative happens, it won't affect you quite as much, but you can have a bad day like that. But then you're kind of, because everything overall in your life is good, you're kind of back on track fast. And the same thing can happen in the opposite way. Like you're depressed, you're experiencing grief for some kind of loss, someone passing away, a breakup, something else. You get fired from a job that meant a lot to you, whatever it is, right? You can go through long-term lower state, and then you can have your more a good day. Something happens, you do something you really enjoy, you could reconnect with some friend, whatever, right? But the key is still the same. We want to be stacking wins to raise the frequency. We want to take as many positive actions, things we just do will, things we just know that if we do them, they will make us feel better. And so, during these kinds of, contraction periods where you're not doing as well, um, it's about raising your frequency with actions like a cold shower in the morning, like hitting a workout. You're going to feel better acutely on the day, but maybe you're not going to be able during those times to get up to that highest frequency, right? And you're going to have to start over the next day. But it's still stacking these wins over time that will kind of make you crawl out, help you crawl out of the hole, right? So basically, in the low states, we're all about minimizing regression and keep going. We might be able to make progression in some areas of our life, like training, for instance. That's again why I think training and the bodybuilding is such a central part of this entire process, right? Because even when other things are crap, you can still feel like you're moving forward here, right? But in general, maybe sometimes you're so stressed out that you don't recover well from the training, and it's just difficult to push it harder even there. Well, it's all about not spiraling down further than you have to, minimize the regression, keep going with as many things as you can. While when you are in that high state, when you're motivated, as some people would say, this is when we really want to maximize our progression and watch out, because we know that we can end up in a lower state again. So we want to expect the best but prepare for the worst, kind of. And it's during the high state we really build, when we prepare for those lower state periods. That's when we raise our lowest level so that we're able to do more even during those lower frequency times. Introspection. Okay, this should come as no surprise that I'm big on looking inward, really looking at yourself. This is something a lot of people don't want to do, right? Everyone likes to blame other people or circumstances for or people or things outside of themselves for their circumstances, basically. Don't really take responsibility for their life, right? And while everything isn't always your fault, it is your responsibility. And even in situations when something happened to you that you really couldn't help, sometimes there's something, even if we don't want to put the blame on you, there's something you could have done differently, right? So we want to take radical responsibility and be very honest with ourselves, because that's painful. That's why a lot of people run from it. Like, no, I don't have to do that. No, oh, if these people are all like this happened. Oh, if only this didn't happen. It's never their fault. But that feels more comfortable in the moment, right? You don't have to blame yourself or take responsibility yourself. But being this very honest with yourself and taking radical responsibility, that's what's going to help you grow and get further in your life. If you just have excuses and point the finger outside yourself, you're gonna stagnate. You're not gonna get anywhere from that. That's gonna be even more painful when you realize that, shit, I could have done things differently. But so tools for this is our meditation or silent prayer that I picked up from Jesse Lee Peterson. Meditation, there's of course many different ways you can do it, but I like this kind of silent prayer style. It's basically just taking 10, 15 minutes, 2, 3 times per day to sit down, just observe the stories that your ego is telling inside you. Because that's what a lot of people do too, right? They live unconsciously. A lot of people are pointing the finger outside of themselves, and that they don't even realize that they're doing it, right? Or I mean, most of them don't. But that can happen to us even when we know these things, that I should be looking at my part in things and what's going on and watching my patterns and how I do things, right? But there's a lot of noise in the world, right? There's just so much distraction going on. So it's very good to take time and just sit down, actually observe. You're going to see sometimes like what's really going on inside you. And that's when you become conscious of the unconscious, that's when you can change things. Journaling, of course, it's, to be honest, not something I've personally done. I haven't personally done it a lot, but at times I've done it. But that's another way of kind of watching what's going on inside you. Of course, if you just sit and write out intuitively what you feel like, it's also, of course, a way of looking back to things. I, of course, get a little bit from my own YouTube videos. I can look back and see what I was thinking about at different times. Conversation, it's very good if you can have friends who are also growth minded. When you that can be honest with you. You know, the best friends are the ones that will tell you some things that might be painful, but make observations that maybe you are blind to yourself. So you can really help yourself, each other with that. Reflection, I just put it like generally. Like sometimes you want to be actively reflecting. If something difficult happened to you, like you really want to think, like, what happened here? What do I think about this? What can I do differently? You know, philosophy, it of course goes into it. But then we, of course, said already, talked about radical responsibility and self honesty, like trying to not lie to yourself as much as possible. And even when you do, when you make up some excuse and you weren't, like we were talking about these kinds of changes, like going on a diet, you want to lose weight. Like be honest with yourself when you fail, at least. Don't blame other things. Like be honest about what's going on. And some other things, speaking of all the noise in the world and that, like fasting, it removes a lot of noise, as in more like you know, not noise as in literally in your ears, but yeah, you're gonna, when you're not just all fed, well, you're gonna get. I am not finding good words to express this right now, but fasting is just a great introspective tool. You're gonna be thinking about things. It's a state shift, really. That's very good for looking inward. It's not by coincidence that fasting is part of many religions, right? And connecting with nature, because of course, in on many levels, we are disconnected from our nature, like the environment we live in, all these screens, all the fake lights, and noisy cities we live in, and that getting it out in nature, it was also remove a lot of noise, so there's just more you to look at, right? Fasting, now let's talk about fasting, yeah, as it is. So it is, of course, an amazing weight loss tool for the one that we've been told. There's a lot of fear mongering about fasting, of course, because you can't really, unless you're a coach, like you use it as one of your tools for your clients in your content, like I do. You can't really make any money from fasting, and so yeah, a lot. It's in a lot of people's interest to not want fasting to work, but it just is done right. It's absolutely the fastest way to lose weight and reducing food addiction and all addictions. So it's I talk about this a lot, that if you go away from food completely, you resynthesize the dopamine receptors connected to your taste buds. So you will both, of course, the insulin sensitivity gets better. So you will both have less problems with. It's a case for this anti-fragility and hormesis kind of thing too. That even when you experience hunger, it's just not such an overwhelming sensation. Like for instance, at this time, I often feel a bit hungry in the morning before it's time to break my fast for the day, but it just doesn't bother me that much, right? And it actually, fasting helps scrub out all dopamine receptors, so it's actually a good tool to remove addictions overall. And you can kind of make some uncommon sense of it too. Like if you have something you want to get rid of everything, even food. If you can stay away from everything for a little time, then when you add food back in, you know, you're going to be happy about that, and maybe you don't need the other thing you were addicted to as much, like let's say cigarettes, you know. Yeah, reduce hunger and cravings for junk, enjoy whole foods. I already talked about that. It's amazing, guys. Like I promise you, I miss those things, as when I started the fasting. Ever since, I can see no reason. Someone had to pay me to eat junk because I just enjoy regular food as much, and it becomes obvious. Of course, it's not supposed to be boring. It's just compared to these extreme fake food drugs, really. Yeah, great spiritual and introspective tool. We talked about that in the previous slide, of course. And to just mention some, I am again not really the science guy to list all the benefits in that way. I like to talk about what actually happens practically in reality. But autophagy, this process when the body recycles old damaged cells, um, growth hormone boost you get from fasting. It has a great anti-inflammatory effect. In fact, it can be part in healing some injuries in your body, not on itself, of course, because rebuilding tissue that's damaged, you can't necessarily do. You're going to need protein for that. But at some points, I've experienced it myself that it will help reduce some inflammation that's lingering. I've healed some injuries doing like the rehab exercises and then hit the fast, and a bit of pain goes away. Keep doing the rehab, some more fasting, and yeah, sometimes like my shoulder, for instance, like my first major injury I had, the pain went away fully after fasting, actually. Well, I'd been bulking and doing some rehab, and then when I started fasting, that's when the pain went away. Yeah, digestion, of course, can help with, and that's the kind of fast when you don't really want to be putting anything other than water in your body. Yeah, and this is a theory I have that it might increase muscle gains long term. Um, in the sense of the body can get more and less sensitive to different stimuli, right? So fasting, it might make you more sensitive to the stimulus of training the body, training the muscle, but even from the protein, right? And I go, it's a bit of uncommon sense, but I also go by the time I did like the 1 week fast. And I felt afterwards when I got back to training, like, shit, did I get bigger? I look better now. And I thought maybe I'm just seeing things. But then I got a lot of feedback like that. So this is not, I'm not saying this as a fact. It's a theory I have. Let's put it like this. During this time, I've been doing this entire process. I've been doing a lot of fasting on and off during the time, and my gains are still very, very good. The timeline is very, very good. So it definitely hasn't slowed it down, right? And it might, in fact, even have helped. So saltwater and dry fasting would be the dry fasting. I'm not as much into for myself, really. I can see times to do it. It's going to be even better for these, like ask a doctor, of course. I'm not a doctor. This is not medical advice. But dry fasting for these like anti-addictions, getting rid of addictions, or dopamine fasting, dry fasting is going to be even better to do. I prefer saltwater fasting when doing a non-dry fast, because it's just such an easy thing, rather than just drink plain water that will make you excrete more electrolytes, that will give you headaches, lightheadedness and stuff, weakness. Just adding salt, a teaspoon of potassium and sodium per liter of water is what I use typically. But to be honest, I mentioned I've done fast when I didn't really have access to the salt, and it hasn't been that bad. It's on the long, when you go over 3 days, absolutely will help. And yeah, fasting as a concept, not just from food. So it's just realizing that anything, if you take it away for a while, you can reintroduce it and be fine with less. Just as I talked about, like how I definitely I got hungry more often. I had some cravings for more junk. When I removed it altogether, now it's much easier to stay in control when I take it back. And so you can fast from anything, right? I've done these dopamine fasts when I didn't even have my phone, right? And then I become much more aware of when I'm just autopiloting in on my phone, like, well, what am I even taking up my phone for now, right? So anything you feel like you're doing too much, you could fast from. And not necessarily always that it has to go away completely, but it can be a way to, it's kind of the fastest way, I feel like, to just lower the level that you use something. Put intermittent fasting here again. I just think, again, that it's a good structure to have as a foundation for how you structure your diet. Like the 3 meals in the 8-hour eating window would be my staple. Uh, but to be honest, it is a good way of staying lean. Of course, just restrict everything that's restricting your eating in some way. May that be like an elimination diet or the time you're eating. It's going to be easy. If that is followed, it's more likely that you don't overeat, right? But there is a little hormesis going on from intermittent fasting as well, a little, cortisol, adrenaline, that can just help you burn just a little more calories. And I just saw a study recently where they tested, like, for muscle growth, people that were eating the same amount of food, like spread out through the entire day, or doing it intermittent fasting style in an 8-hour eating window. And the interesting thing to me was that the muscle gains were pretty much the same, but the intermittent fasting group gained way less fat with the muscle. So I think that's something that really helped me lean bulk. It's easier to stay lean with intermittent fasting. Healing. Okay, this is something I talk a lot about. And it's, I want to say disclaimer, like with all the new age spirituality and healing and stuff, it's really been watered down. And it kind of annoys me because there are so many important points to be made about how you can heal, understand yourself, and change basically anything about yourself. But there's so much bullshit, so much crap. Like, watch out. Like, that could be its entire video on its own, but watch out for the vague language, when they just talk about manifesting and abundance, blah, 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 but they don't really tell you anything practically. Or the people are just overly positive about it. Because when we're talking about healing, there's going to be a lot of, as you see, one of the points, shadow work as well. It's going to be a lot of painful things you're going to have to do. It's not just all love and light. There's darkness there too. But of course, childhood trauma. And that, it's one of the first things to look at. How did my childhood shape me? What did my parents or other caregivers, my environment, what did they do that I did not like? And how can that have shaped me? And if you find yourself in similar patterns or similar things are difficult for you, you can backtrace it to your childhood. It's always when you make the unconscious conscious, that's when you can change, right? And other trauma, of course, things that have like PTSD kind of stuff, things that happen in your not as a child, basically, only that's more often that's going to be easier to, it's more straightforward, right? Because when things happen as you're a kid, you don't know that you're getting traumatized, right? But all trauma, I guess we'll move on. We're gonna come to back to that. Yeah, understanding yourself and observing yourself. You're gonna have to look at yourself so much. It goes into the introspection and radical responsibility, right? We say about the trauma again, like especially the childhood trauma, right? Okay, many kinds of trauma. It wasn't your fault. You couldn't help what happened. You were a victim to some evil person or to some circumstance. You were in some kind of accident or whatever. But then it is your responsibility to fix it. So you have to understand yourself. You have to look at yourself, see what this has made you, how this has shaped you, and take steps to change your patterns, right? So questioning core beliefs and fears like abandonment, rejection, unworthiness. Like, I could really talk so much about this. These are things that I talk about with clients a lot. They are really their own subjects, but these are kind of things that we all to different degrees carry with us, basically from childhood, right? And we don't realize how much we run on programs. Many things that we think are the way things work. Like, if I do this, they're gonna leave me, and or I don't deserve this kind of thing. You can think it's true, but it's really your programming. Because at one point, that's what trauma really is. It served you to survive at one point, but it doesn't anymore. And then you have to question these beliefs and fears. Radical responsibility again. I don't have to, you get what I'm saying. Shadow work, that's really looking at the parts of yourself that you like the least and owning them. And again, it all comes back, understand where you're coming from, but lean into the pain. Lean into the pain. Like, don't run from the pain. That's what addictions are, really. I say that. Addictions are less about the pleasure you're running towards, even if you think so, but they're more about the pain you're running from. So when you have addictions that you fail to quit, you have to ask yourself, what is the pain I'm running from here? And I want to be clear that pain isn't always as obvious as, oh, it hurts, just being bored, can be a sort of pain, right? So because that's sometimes what addictions, what you're really running from, right? With facing fears, what is scary to you? That's where your work lies. And of course, that within reason, like complete, oh, I'm scared of going into a cage with 10 lions, like you're not an idiot, but things you're afraid of, that facing them, that's where your work is. Like, this is all programming in your nervous system. And the only way to reprogram yourself as a human being is to put yourself in a place and go against the program for enough times for your nervous system to finally understand that, okay, this isn't actually dangerous. I don't have to have this reaction to this. Then you install new programming, right? So ego work in relationship to self goes into the introspection. A lot of this is looking at yourself, the stories you keep telling yourself, the patterns you find yourself in, taking responsibility. Not, oh, people always do this to me. Oh, people always do this. People use me. well, then you're letting them use you. You know, you have even if they shouldn't do that, they're bad people, but you have a part in this as well, right? So the external is a manifestation of the internal. It both means that, like, if singular, like, tough things happen to you in life, and just a single instance of something happened, then that's when we really have to. It doesn't necessarily have anything to do with who you are as a person. But again, if you find yourself, for instance, in the same kind of relationship with the same kind of person that mistreats you in the same kind of way, then you have a part in this, right? There's something about you that manifests these kinds of person. You're drawn to this kind of person for some reason. This is where you're going to have to look at yourself closely to change this pattern, but also the way you look at the world, the way you feel about the world is a manifestation of the world is a mirror. Change yourself to change the reflection. If you don't like what you see in the mirror, you wouldn't try to change the mirror, right? You need to change the thing that is getting reflected in the mirror, and that's you. So I say this too, like, because for me, for instance, was very upset about the world, about, you know, the political correctness stuff, blah, blah, blah. I felt the world was just horrible. Everything is going to hell. And while many things I still agree with the facts, I just don't feel like the world is such a miserable place anymore, because I'm not as miserable on the inside, you see? Yeah. So, wow, this is all very interesting, but let's move on. Definition of health. Yeah. Okay. This is a good point, because it's funny, because I'm someone that's very, very on point. Like my diet, I never eat junk food. That would only be if it's some kind of necessary solution when I'm out of my regular circumstances, right? And I prioritize sleep to this ridiculous degree. I'm very, my training practice, all this, right? But I still think that a part of health, it's 90% doing the textbook healthy thing, eating the right thing, sleeping well, etc., you know. But just following the rules of what's like healthy like that, it can become, you if you're not enjoying your life because you're prioritizing what the textbook says is best for your health, is that really healthy? You know, like, now there has to be a little bit of room of doing things that you enjoy, and that's unique for you. I like the example that for me, for instance, alcohol is just barely ever worth it whatsoever, right? Like, the smallest amount. If I wake up the next day, even if I don't feel like all nauseous and stuff, I just feel like, no, the little deficit I can feel from this drink, it's not worth what I got the night before. So there's just something I very rarely choose to do. But I know other people, like this couple I was training for a while. They like to have a couple of glasses of wine on a Friday evening, right? And you can't make the case it's still too much according to the textbook. The polyphenols or whatever in the wine that could give you a health benefit. It's over that threshold. But if it makes them enjoy life enough, it doesn't come at too big of a price, in my opinion, to say that, oh, that's bad for them and they shouldn't do it. You know, that's their choice. There's a little bit of wiggle room here, and it's going to be a bit unique for you. All right. So I put then no drug abuse, but biohacking. And it's just also, again, acknowledging people have such a black and white view of things, you know, that something is either good or bad. But with most things, there is a balance. Something could be used at a beneficial dose. Like, I know that something like, I'll say that this is difficult. It's very often difficult finding that balance. But let's say, for instance, for me, I use coffee. I drink coffee with the caffeine. There are health benefits to coffee. There are some benefits now from nicotine too, they say. And I think it's best to get them from natural sources, you know, no freaking vaping or energy drinks. You could have an energy drink at some point. It's, again, a little bit of wiggle room, but I do use them too much. Then we're gonna come to the next point with it. I use them a little bit too much. It's not something I worry a lot about. I have a subscriber that watches all my videos, and it's all he worries about. You know, it's a nice flaw finding tendency that guy has, but. I put here under no addictions. That's an ideal. But the thing is, again, just as neither of us are God, we're never perfect. So I'm aware that, like, nah, I don't have to let go of these things, like my snooze and my coffee, completely. I am using them a bit too much, but over time, I've gradually decreased the amount I've used them, even if there's still too much, and maybe I'll never get what I think is the ideal. But it's about having this ideal, that having no addictions really, nothing you need just because you need it, that's an ideal, but you're always moving closer to that, right? And yeah, I put bad things, quote unquote, can be good at the right time. It's kind of this with like the alcohol thing, right? Like for someone, it even could be you can't measure these things always. Like maybe for someone, they're very stressed in their life, and so when they have their couple of glasses there, or in according to the book, it's too much to be healthy. But if it helps them decrease their overall stress, because they get to enjoy and relax, be with their friends, and drink a little bit of wine, maybe that was beneficial. So what I'm saying here is, most of the time, go for the textbook healthy thing, but then there's going to be a little bit of wiggle room to just do what you enjoy, because it's healthy to just enjoy a little bit as well. And sometimes maybe even the positive effect you get from something outweighs the negative effect. But this is where you're going to have to use your own discernment a little bit too. Don't make excuses for overusing something. And I'm not doing with the coffee and snooze there, right? But yeah, anyway, let's move on. Growth mindset and leveling up. So yeah, life is a video game with endless potential to level up. You should be viewing it this way, right? Never stop learning and training body and mind. So you can always become better with, like, we're not talking just strictly when we say body, like building muscle, just because I think that's one important tool of this entire process that I teach. But you can learn skills. You can learn juggling. You can learn. If you're strong in your legs, you don't have to get stronger always, but you can learn a pistol squat or a dragon, I recall dragon squat, and the mind, you can learn a language, you can, the language, but you can always keep leveling up, and that's going to be good for you because of neuroplasticity. It's funny, just the act of learning something new makes you better at learning new things, but it also kind of prevents from Alzheimer's, dementia, and that you're gonna you age slower in a sense like that, or the effect of aging is not gonna affect you as much. More skills never hurt, right? Like you can't learn. It's not gonna be like, oh, I wish I wasn't as good as this. So just even if something can seem pointless, like why would I learn this thing? Just having something that you're learning and improving upon is always going to be good. Um, and yeah, experience over theory. Yeah, that's a big one for me with uncommon sense, of course. Like a lot of people in this information society hyper focus on learning in that sense, reading about doing a thing, watching videos about doing a thing. And absolutely, that's great that we have that opportunity, but you always learn mostly from experience. Like when I coach someone, I'm not teaching them the thing. I am guiding them through an experience so that they learn the thing. Do you understand? Of course, it's a little bit semantic. A teacher teaches, but that's really how it happens. The teacher gives you what you need to learn, right? So combine theory with practice. Don't spend too much time hitting the books or the YouTube videos or whatever. Like it has to be balanced with practice all the time. I was doing this when I was started training. I was looking a lot at training content when I was doing it at the same time. And I want to say, because we talked about the states, that when you're in a lower state and you don't have as much capacity for output, that might be a good time to just spend some more time like learning and preparing for when you're more able to take it into practice, right? And then when you're more like motivated and you're in a better place in life, that's when you like let go of the books. It's just cheap dopamine a lot of the time. Then like practice the thing too. Growth mindset, of course, it's just a mindset of always want to be better. We want to be better in every way. Always be progressing, because progression and action. No, the last one I want to say. But progression is life. Regression is death. Like that's why depression is very many times. Of course, sometimes we experience loss and grief like that, but when we just feel lost and apathetic in life, it's because feel like we're not really moving anywhere. Like playing a video game, it gets boring. If you're like, yeah, I'm running around, I don't know, there's no levels, I don't leveling, you want, you wanna be getting further, right? You want to be improving in some way. So that's why I put always be progressing. Make sure that you have some area in your life always where you're progressing. It's very important for your mental health, and of course, just that mindset that's going to take you further than thinking all the time that I can just be kind of stagnated and it's fine. Progression and action over perfection. It goes into, it's the same like paralysis by analysis, like you don't have to know exactly what to do always. When we're talking about training, for instance, it's again, we compare all processes to the gym, right? But just taking action and improving, that's the point. You're never perfect. Never perfect. I've every single year of my training, I could look back, and many other things, of course, I can look back and see what I did, but I did. Took action, became better. And if you have that in mind, you hit the books while actually practicing, taking action. At some point, you're going to come so close to perfection that there's almost no difference. Like, I know that in some people that watch me, follow me on Instagram and stuff, in their eyes, I'm doing it perfectly with my diet and training, and especially with the training. Like, I don't have like, I'm not judgmental on myself, but I know many times where there's a room for improvement. But someone watching from the outside, to them, because they're not at that level, it might seem as perfection. Because consistent action and progression for long enough, it makes for perceived perfection. Okay, so now the orders and chat, throwing in the Swedish word, it's a little random, but sun exposure, we talked about morning sun to set the exposure. We talked about morning sun to set the circadian clock. It's a good part to have of your morning routine. Midday sun for hormone synthesis. So yeah, the sun is healthy. It's good for you. So testosterone and progesterone, all these hormones, the sun is an important component for your hormone synthesis. So those are the things, like get your dose of morning sun and a little bit of sun in the middle of the day. And it's basically, the more you can get without getting burnt, the better. Important for mental health, obviously. Like here in Sweden, people get depressed in the winter, even though us Scandinavians probably have adapted. Still it hits us. So yeah, struggle if you struggle with mental health and stuff, that should be a priority, to get out, get some sunlight. And then we just take some uncommon sense in here, that a tan looks good because it is good. And then if you can do it outside, do it. That's a good rule, The sun has it now. Yeah, I'm just saying now. Of course, because I've decided to record this video, it's kind of sunny outside, but it's been a crappy summer here. But last summer, for instance, when it was really good weather, I did as much of my training outside as I could, find an outdoor gym. Walking, yes, it's the most accessible tool for general health. Like you look it up. Just look up all the benefits from the walking. Stan Efferding, big on walking, not necessarily the length of walking, I guess, with him. But yeah, it's most accessible. Like almost anyone, you're gonna be very poor shape if you can't even walk, right? But it's like one of the easiest thing to just improve your health generally. Get some more walking in. You get higher energy expenditure at low cost, meaning that, like, again, if you aren't in really poor shape, or bad shoes or whatever, it's almost like the more you walk, the better. And it doesn't cost you that much. Most of the time, if you're just walking, you're not going to get all exhausted from it, but you do burn calories, right? And yeah, I put can be used instead of, because I'm someone that I think about it holistically. How do you shape your life and your habits and your days, right? And walking, it's not so much that you have to do something extra, like cardio on top of my gym training. I have to do this much cardio. Or if you can walk instead of taking the bus, or and sometimes, by the way, just came to mind, if you are someone that's going to have to move long distances, you can jump off the bus, go a little bit, or you can park the car a little bit further away from wherever you're going, right? But it's a lot of the time you could just do it instead of something, rather than feeling like it's something extra you have to take on. If you combine walking, like 10K steps per day, with resistance training, no cardio is really necessary for health. The science trademark is actually pretty clear on this. Not that it would hurt, but right, for general health, if you get a good amount of resistance training in, like 3-4 times per week, get your 10K steps in, for your general health, like extra cardio is not just going to do as much. It's more a performance thing at that point. 10K a day goes a long way, but more doesn't hurt. Yeah, basically, you're gonna have to determine for yourself: do your feet hurt, your back hurt, that shit. Beware of the foot prison. Yes, this is a big one. when you realize that we were not born with sneakers on, and most of them are too narrow, then squeeze our feet together, and you start walking more bare feet when you can, you're gonna notice that it fucking sucks to have shoes. So get the right kind of. There are bare feet shoes. There are even like sneakers, like they call them bare feet shoes. Of course, you're not bare feet literally if you have sneakers, but they're kinder to your feet. Yeah, for your foot health, and the posture starts from the foot. Like sometimes that your neck is hurting could be starting because you're wearing crappy shoes and walking around all the time. Grounding. I'm the science enjoyer can look up like the medical or like the benefits in that way, but it's again just a good habit to have. Like just think of it again, connecting with nature. So disconnected with nature. When was the last time you just touched grass with your bare feet? It feels good. It feels good. It's like again now because we have such poor weather, I'm not doing it on a daily basis, but basically part of my morning routine to go out, get like 10-15 minutes of bare feet grounding, catching some morning sun. I promise you, it's a great start to the day. Relationships, all right. So yes, it's very important. Relationships, again, when you view it holistically, everything you take in, and you of course take in other people's energy and their words, like what they say, and how their energy and what they do affects you. So it's part of your diet in a sense. And so being alone is better than being with the wrong people. That when you go on a path, a lot of people when they start working on themselves, when they find a guy like me, watching my content or hire me, of course something has happened, or they just reach a point where they feel like I need to be doing things differently. And a lot of the time, that when they grow, they're gonna start noticing that the people they used to spend time with either don't like it and try to actively pull them down like this, or they feel pulled down by them, and they just start feeling I don't have as much common with these people anymore. I have to sacrifice a lot right here. And so being alone is better than being with the wrong people. It often starts like that when you start changing, that you have to cut off people. And it's not always that you have to do it like, I don't ever want to see you again in an angry way, but put some boundaries. Sometimes you're going to see that some relationships can take a different shape and find a new balance, and it actually works out. Some people will come around later on. That happens both in like romantic and friendship relationships, that it didn't work quite then. You go along on your separate paths, and then one day your paths can cross again, right? But then I put this is, to be honest, a trap that I myself sometimes have to look out for. That strong alone is good, but stronger together is great. It's amazing to be self-reliant, to be able to do a lot on your own, and enjoy your own company, that you don't need other people as a drug, because a lot of people are like that. They're codependent in their crappy habits, and just that they can't be with themselves like that. So it's great if you can be, but it's sort of a trauma response sometimes to be hyper independent. I know, because I've had to do a lot by myself in my life, and I've been disappointed many times in my life. I felt like I bring more to different kinds of relationships than I get back, and not that you come and give stuff to expect something, but that you many times feel like I always get let down, and then it becomes a thing like just doing me, and you might have to do it at certain points like that, but you should. Some people want to do, I don't need anyone, that kind of thing. But we're social creatures. What the fuck would you do if everyone in the world died? Like, what would it be the point of your life, right? So, absolutely, it's great that you can be strong alone, and you're going to have to be at a certain. The better you become, the smaller your flock, like the people that you can actually have as your friends, going to get. But stronger together is always great. You always want to be looking for the people that you actually can have relationships with, and maintain those relationships. You are what you eat, and you are who you spend time with or listen to. Yeah, I said that right, about the diet, people diet. Different levels of relationships. Yeah, that's also good to know, right? Like sometimes someone you used to be very close with, again, you don't always have to cut them out completely, but they might have to go down to lower level, be downgraded. That sounds, putting it like that doesn't sound very nice, but you see what I mean. It's not always necessary that you like someone less or something. It's just that now, but you have to be looking out for yourself as well. So, yeah. Um, Working on yourself for others. Yeah, I guess I put this here because it goes in, but yeah, you can see the work on yourself. It's not just about you, like, oh, prioritizing me so much, but I- Becoming a better you, that's in the end, it's the best you can do for other people too. You can't change people. Like, if you, the better you make yourself, the more you have to bring to other people. So the work on you is not only for you. And that's just a good perspective. You know, for someone who's like, oh, it's tough to work out now that I have a family. Oh, you wouldn't understand. Yeah, I get it. I understand, but it's selfish of you. You would actually, the way you change your priorities a little bit and actually prioritize working on your physical health, and that you would have more to bring to your loved ones, and you would be setting a better example for them, because people don't do as you say, they do as you do. The romantic relationship is life's biggest challenge and thus give the greatest rewards. And I of course don't have any kids, but I would include in that you have children. I'm sure that's very challenging. It's easy to sit and say how you should do things, but you're going to get your challenges you were never prepared for then too. But yeah, the romantic relationship, the way I view it with healing, and that when you're seeing your patterns and that we talked about earlier, is the more healed and the more like secure you become in yourself, the smaller the amount of people that like even can affect you into a negative of a way, that trigger your insecurities and fears, and that it's like a person that's very insecure and haven't done much work on themselves, they're gonna feel insecure and like be looking for validation or whatever their thing is from almost anyone and feel bad. But then it's gonna be maybe just people that you know a little better, and then maybe barely friends. Maybe it's just your family, and maybe at some point. But the romantic relationship, that's where you're. I know from experience, guys. That's where you're gonna get the biggest challenge. You're gonna feel terrible at times, like it's meant to be. That's something important to say, that with the best romantic relationship, you will get everything you want, experience that love and support and connection like that, and you elevate each other through that too. But also, one component of it will be that you're going to highlight each other's biggest insecurities and fears that maybe you even didn't know of or thought were gone. And that's painful and difficult. And that's why a lot of people, that's why so many relationships end in divorce, or why so many people are just stuck in unhealthy relationships, because they don't choose to lean into this pain. Lean into this pain, but it can be the greatest gift, really. Yeah, guys, like just know that if you thought you think you meet a really good person, and like, but now this is so difficult, and they're not blah blah blah. You have to look really close, because you're never gonna find anyone that just doesn't trigger you at all. And if they don't, it probably means you settled, and it wasn't really, you're just comfortable, you know. Um, yeah, the best kind of relationship is going to be amazing most of the time, but there's going to be a component what's very, very difficult for you. But then you work together. You work on, again, it's the best you can do. You work on yourself for the other, and they work on themselves for you. And because, right, just doing things that feel good, like sometimes we enjoy, some things that makes us better are enjoyable, but the greatest wins comes through the biggest challenges, right? And that's sometimes are these like feeling like you're a little insecure kid again, and having to face those things in front of another person, with another person, is very vulnerable. But okay, connection and interaction, that should be said, you know, like even for someone like myself, I have some good friends that I fit into what I'm talking about here and stuff. But I spend quite a bit. I work by myself. I'm a one-man company as of right now, right? But that you can connect with people just around you, and you should make an effort to do that. You know, it doesn't all have to be very deep conversations. Like sometimes you're gonna find people like in the gym or something, you know, where you have meaningful, deep, interesting conversations, but just interacting and spreading some joy with people. Again, we talked about this earlier. You want to give what you want for yourself. If you want positivity, you have to give away positivity, and so it's just a good thing to be aware of. Like, just smile to people, say hi to people. Ask that when you're buying something in a store, you can always just ask, "How's your day?" or wish them a good day, and do it in a way so they feel seen. You know, they're gonna feel good from that, and you're gonna feel good from that. So just because this society, we're getting so disconnected from each other with the big cities, with all the technology, the smartphones. it's good to take conscious effort towards this. So community is something I put last here because I think it's important. It of course goes into what I just was talking about. What I just mentioned. I would really want to create some kind of community related to uncommon sense, but yeah, I just don't quite know where to start with that. Other than through like the comment section on the channel and stuff, but it's too small for it to be anything like that right now. But so I'm just putting it here because it goes into what I just talked about. But please throw ideas at me, guys. I'd love to. People that like this channel, I'm pretty sure I like all of you, and it would be very cool because we're rare. We're uncommon, right? So it would be very cool to be able to connect with you more, even outside being, having clients and stuff like that. Yeah, traditional values, I put them in quotes because it's really just living in reality in harmony with God and nature. Um, yeah, there's this stuff just works. So embrace masculinity and femininity. And so the interesting thing about this, it both means that men and women are different, but there's good, like it exists in all of us. Like men have feminine traits and women have masculine traits, and these can be toxic and healthy in both of us, right? But embrace that this is a thing. It's supposed to be. It's a balance, yin and yang. Um, oh yeah, human being versus human animal. So this is the thing when you prioritize purpose over pleasure. The purpose-driven person, that's the human being, while the one that's just looking for pleasure, you're like an animal. So you can see that animals, yeah, when they live in nature under like their best, you know, like just natural conditions, absolutely, they live like a healthy life in that sense. But they go just by instinct. So if you put all these conveniences out for them, like they're gonna get sick, because they just go by instinct. Like, oh, food, good, this tastes good, I eat, blah blah blah. You know, a duck they just feed, they're gonna get fat and lazy, because they don't have any ability to think about, oh, maybe this isn't good for me. But the human being actually has the ability, because that's the same thing is happening to our societies now. But it just makes it easier for we have the choice still to overcome that. That's the difference between us and the animal. So yeah, if you are a complete slave to pleasures like that, you are a you are a human animal. You don't want to be, right? So abstinence, Volcel, that's of course something I am. I just am a Volcel. I've chosen. You can go watch my video to not talk too much about it. I have not had sex in 4 years. Is the most recent one, but I of course think, like, have I put this in here? Yeah, pron. So you know what I'm talking about. Promiscuity and sexual degeneracy is the root of all evil. Really, I've seen it. And evil, we don't just mean like actually doing evil acts to people, but it demoralizes people. That this is like the start of becoming the human animal. But it's worse. There are terrible people in this world, sexual abusers, pedophiles, even, right? So acknowledging this, like it's a strong drive, but no fap or low fap is what you should be practicing. I talk about low fap as in, I actually tried, maybe I should do a video about that, but I did no fap for like a couple of months. I didn't really felt it did so much for me because I've already practiced low fap, meaning doing this on a very low frequency, like once or twice per week max, and I have done the celibacy thing and stuff. So I feel like absolutely, like being a porn or sex addict, you drain yourself in a way that's not good for you. But I don't think it's like the longer you stay away from it, the better. Like, yeah, you could do it as a fast, like we talked about earlier in the video. But yeah, I don't see that you have to be permanently in the no fap thing. But you should just not be doing this often. And yeah, I'll say, like, with the porn, there's really almost no nuance there. Like the thing is, there's nothing is black and white in life. So I'd say the only thing porn, quote unquote, could be okay. I could see when you're in a committed relationship, you're married even. If you send like nude pictures or you do something like that together, that's when it's just an extension. Then that's like using Oh, I think we're going to come to that later, by the way. But, yeah. Less polarized in modern times, balance between modernity and tradition. Now, it's funny that I took the example with like porn, like that. But that all these modern things, we want to remember where we come from and acknowledge our traditions and our nature and that. But we, of course, want to be furthering society forward. It's just that it can't go too far. We become human animals when we just make everything super convenient and easy. Just do everything that's comfortable and just feels nice to us. But we can embrace that we have this technology, like a smartphone, social media. Those can be very useful things. But if you become a complete addict to them, just watch bullshit stuff, addicted to TikTok dumb videos, then it's no good. But you see, yeah, being a father, mother is the greatest goal in life. That's my opinion. It's like we're here to elevate as a species, elevate our consciousness and just us on every level, right? And so if you develop yourself to a high level, like being a father and mother, and you can actually do it right from the start, because so many of us didn't get a good start to our lives and we had to kind of fix and heal ourselves. But then that's apart from you spreading good in society as a whole like that, to be able to do it from scratch with your own children, that's really the greatest thing you can do in this life. And yeah, let's move on. For the difficult and fun in parentheses now. So yeah, difficult now or difficult later. It's a pattern in life, guys. That if you run from the difficult now, like whatever it is, you don't want to exercise. Following a good diet is too difficult. I don't feel good. I turn to drugs. It's gonna come to at a price later on. So life is difficult, not only, but there is a difficult component to life, and so to some extent you can choose your difficult. You choose to do difficult discipline things now, it's going to make your life a whole lot easier later. Like if you take good care of yourself, you eat a good, it's always easy again with the gym and training health analogies. If you eat a good diet and take care of your body, it might be tough sometimes now. And especially as you start, you feel like you're sacrificing things. But then when the people that didn't are all broken down and they're like, they look like, I don't know, they don't, they're walking like all shaky or whatever, and they have all these, they're taking 19 different medications. You're still strong and healthy and you can walk and run, you can play with your grandkids and stuff, right? Difficult now or difficult later. And also, if you, the more difficult now, the more you prepare yourself to be able to handle the difficult. When the difficult you can't control comes, different challenges that are out of your control in life, you're just going to be better equipped to deal with them. So contrast, yes, you got to realize everything exists by contrast. So it's the example of you wake up in the morning, you feel a certain way, you don't feel like taking the cold shower, but then you do, and now you feel better about everything because the contrast, right? It's just good to and it's also good to embrace that when things feel difficult in life, don't want to like gaslight you into like, oh, this is good for you, but it's because things can feel difficult that things can feel good as well. So embrace the difficult. And so ways I put here, some obvious ways again of doing this. Training, cold shower, sauna, meditation. Sauna isn't always all that difficult, but you can push it so that it's difficult. But you feel very relaxed afterwards, right? Meditation, it can be uncomfortable sitting with your thoughts and emotions like that. But later on, you understood yourself better and you've kind of cleaned the gutters of your mind. And now it's easier. You train, it's tough, but then you adapt and you look better and you feel better. You see what I'm saying? Facing fears appears here again. Whatever is difficult for you is good for you, and of course it's again within reason. Something is that's just difficult because it's completely stupid or something, of course not. But really, wherever you feel resistance, wherever you feel like this is scary or this is too tough, I don't wanna, that's where you have the most room for growth. And the more, I was really into talking about fear last year, and it's something I always think about, of course. You face your fears, and all that shall remain will be you. Fear is the emotion that makes you the least of yourself. Um, yeah, it's when you go into pure, you become like an animal, just wanting to survive. And so the more fear you can remove from yourself by facing it, again, installing new software in your nervous system, the more room you're going to have to just be you. And then I put lastly, doing difficult things is fun. Think searcher. Because it's again in this convenient society, like, oh, no, that's tough. No, I don't want to do that. No. But the thing is, especially as men, but anyone really, it depends on the difficult thing, of course. But doing challenging things is fun. It intersects sometimes, like lifting heavy, doing heavy searcher squats. I just put searcher as an example, but yeah, it's tough and it hurts in the elbow crooks, but you feel kind of beastly. You have fun with it, so embrace this. Like everything in life that's fun is not always like watching TV, just watching this, doing this thing that's really nice to do. Like a lot of things that are challenging are not only rewarding afterward, they are actually fun when you get into it. Like that's the thing with training, for instance. When of course, when you don't have the habit and your body isn't fit, a lot of it is just going to be tough. But as you get better at it and stuff, like some things aren't even all that tough to do. You're just like, yeah, I'm making an effort. Yeah. And yeah, I guess we're coming towards the end here. Just some things. I guess I just wanted to get some philosophy and worldview stuff in here again. But the world is crazy deceptive. The world is crazy, period. Everything is a scam. Like, I'm just validating you here that, like, I know that I'm an unusual person. My views on the world, not only my lifestyle, but the way I look at the world and view the world is unusual. But this is why you must use your uncommon sense over the way of the world, because most people are either fooled by the craziness of this world, or they go along with it because it's the most convenient thing to do. But you're never gonna reach true contentment and fulfillment and enjoyment of life doing it that way. You have to go your own way. Don't watch the news. Like even if you do, like you have to be very careful about, because even if you think you're looking at it and you're conscious of all of this, it's going to have a negative impact on you. Reject the mainstream. Like what most people don't do things right. They just don't. If you want something better than average, something better than the mainstream, something better than what's typical, you can't go along with the mainstream. Do not go along to get along. Like it's difficult now or difficult later. Yeah, it's convenient now and sometimes, but you're gonna regret it, holding you back. And being normal in a sick society is abnormal, because what's common now is not normal. It's not what most people do. It's absolutely not normal these days. Like, I mean, I don't know how long the video is. I can't see now. We can't go into it, but I think you know what I'm talking about. Do not try to fit in or regret it. Difficult now, difficult later. Live the life you want to live, not the one society has paved the way for you. That's going to take more conscious effort. If you just go the way that's been paved for you, you see these things, you're not going to be happy. You're going to have regrets at the end of your life. Speak out when it's time to do so and contribute what you can. So what I mean by this is that even if you don't go along to get along and you don't fit in, like, it's not always the time to just be the one that just says everything like it is. You have to choose wisely. You have to be a little smart about how you do it. Like, it's like saying that you don't want to go with the mainstream and all that. Like, yeah, that's your main goal, but you also, of course, sometimes you just have to be a little bit tactical. Just don't do it out of fear. You make sure it's a practical reason you're doing it for. And because a lot of people fool themselves with that. No, but I can't, because I only did it because self-honesty, okay? Trust yourself, your intuition, and experience above all. That's the thing, guys. I felt I was always a person that could see some things that not everyone could. But I question, am I crazy? Because all the other people are doing this. And why don't I enjoy this? Why do I see it? Why don't I? But I've now proven so many things to myself through the path I've walked, that I just know that my intuition and my experience, if it says something, if I know something like that, even if everything else outside me tells me it's wrong, I have to go with it, or else it's just going to be too painful in the end. Final words. Yeah, this is an attempt to summarize the process that worked for me, made me the person I am today. I guess I pretty much said at the start, this is what I coach, work on with clients. I want to create a community like we talked about. Please, any suggestions you have around that? I do want to bring as much of this to as many as possible for free. And coming directly to the source, though, it always yields 1,000 times better results. So if you're into what I do here on the channel, like, even if you manage to do progress on your own, that's great. I'll be super happy. That's the point, to get this to. When I started this, I was so shocked at how much I could change my life with the things I did. And I felt like just seems like a waste to just keep this to myself. I started it purely out. I just want others to have it. Then when you realize I can make this into maybe I can make a living of this, but not for the purpose of, oh, I can make money of this. It's more like, if I can make money of this, I can do it even more. Um, but yeah, so I started the coaching. But I know, as a coach and someone that's hired coaches myself, the best results always comes from working directly with the source, with the person you're following with. So just so you know, if you're hungry for these kinds of results, but I'm always happy to be able to bring to as many as possible. And so that's why I ask for your support in other ways as well, even you that don't want to take on the coaching. I really want your help to be able to spread all these things to more people. Do not overthink it. I don't remember what I meant, but it's usually a rule. Overthink things as little as possible. Like, analyze, philosophize, but at a point you're done. Just act. Yeah, I support all the forms of support, likes, comments, or whatever level you can do. Like, even something I haven't mentioned, I haven't come up. I mean, you have a camera. Whatever you can think of. I appreciate your support. But thank you for watching anyway. Yeah, I think we're done, guys.